I did it. I finally read my very first Darcy Coates book, an author who has been recommended to me time and time again. Whenever I review a book about a haunted house or I use the term cozy horror, everyone in the comments is always like, Cameron, you need to read Darcy Coates. You have to read Darcy Coates. So I did. I read The Whispering Dead by Darcy Coates. This is the first book in her new series. This comes out on May 4th, and I want to talk about it. So we're going to dig into The Whispering Dead without spoilers, of course, right after this. The Whispering Dead by Darcy Coates follows a girl named Kira who wakes up in the middle of a graveyard with no memory of who she is or what she's doing there. All she knows is that she is covered in dirt and blood and she is being hunted by men with guns. So obviously Kira is very freaked out, as anybody would be, so she's running through this cemetery in the middle of a storm, trying to get away from these men, trying to seek refuge. Finally, she finds the groundskeeper's house, who is owned by this pastor who owns the overall graveyard. And she tells him, I don't know what's going on. There are men chasing me. So he's like, it's okay. I got you covered. Hide in the cupboard. I will address these men. So she hides, and very soon these men come up to the door. Immediately, Kira is like, this guy is a pastor. Is he able to lie for me? Well, sure enough, he does. He lies to the men. He says he's never seen this girl before. He sends them away. He quickly discovers that Kira doesn't know who she is. She doesn't know why these men were chasing her. So he decides he's going to start taking care of her. He offers her a place in the groundskeeper's cottage, which is just off in the cemetery. Kira feels very uncomfortable with this hospitality. She doesn't like the fact that this man is giving her free things and giving her a place to stay. She doesn't feel like she deserves it. So obviously she has retained a lot of her personality. She's the kind of person who does not like charity. It makes her uncomfortable. But she knows she doesn't really have a choice. So she accepts the man's hospitality. So the pastor starts commissioning the help of some people in this small town. He gets the help of this town doctor, though this doctor doesn't have his degree. He's actually just a dropout, but he knows enough about medicine that he starts taking care of Kira for free. So obviously the two of them become friends in the book, and Kira does start making friends with other people in town, though she needs to be very, very careful about who she's talking to because she doesn't know if these men who were looking for her are still in town. Kira also quickly discovers that the cemetery that she is staying in is haunted, and she may have some very special abilities that allows her to see and speak to the dead. I'm just gonna leave it at that because of course I don't want to spoil the overall story, but I will say that Darcy Coates writes very cozy horror. This basically felt like a cozy mystery with a lot of paranormal aspects, lots of ghosts. And while this is described as horror, I wouldn't necessarily say it is strictly horror because it's not a scary book. You're not going to get scared by this. This focuses much more in the way of atmosphere and characters and that small town life. There are definitely a lot of spooky, dark aspects, but it's not the kind of book that's going to horrify you. This is the kind of book I recommend sitting down with on a spooky, rainy night with a cup of tea and a blanket and just feeling all of those creepy, cozy vibes, as Merce from Harpies in the Trees would say. So this book really has the cozy aspects to it. In fact, I actually packed this up and I went to the cemetery down the street from my house and I read it in the middle of the cemetery, and it was just perfect. It was such an enjoyable time. I was also really entranced by the plot of the book because obviously there is a lot of mystery here. The whole time I was reading, I was trying to figure out what happened to Kira, where did she come from? Were these men that are after her, did they kidnap her and she's escaped? Did she witness something with her gift that got her into some trouble? She doesn't know. She's like, what if I did something that I'm gonna go to jail for if I go to the police? So of course she doesn't want to turn herself in. It's definitely a sticky predicament, and I feel like Darcy Coates handled it really, really well and very realistically. It definitely has this layer of anxiety over the book because I kept putting myself in Kira's shoes and I'm like, damn, if I were in that situation, I would be freaking out. So I was able to really connect with her character in that way, and it made me very nervous for her while still maintaining all of those cozy vibes. If you're the kind of person who likes likable characters, I found Kira very likable, so it definitely has that going for it as well. Now, I will say there was one character in particular that I did not care for, and that is Zoe. Kira meets this character named Zoe, who's another young woman who lives in the town. She works at the grocery store. She is very into conspiracies, obviously. She is a little bit manic and just a little bit insane, though Kira does become friends with her, and I feel like we're kind of supposed to like Zoe, that she's supposed to be this fun, quirky character, but I found her very overbearing, and I did not find myself enjoying the scenes that she's in, and that would have been okay because we all know somebody like that, right? We know somebody who's a little bit manic, who's a little bit unhinged, but the fact that I feel like I was supposed to like Zoe's character, I don't know, it just didn't work for me. I did not enjoy reading about her. I just found her to be a little bit too much. I would say that that was my main drawback about the book, is just I just didn't enjoy her character. Some people might like reading about her. I could have done without her, or at least had her toned down just a little bit. Otherwise, I loved this book. I loved the mystery. I loved Kira. I also loved the pastor who takes her in. I really loved the doctor who she becomes friends with. I love the fact that she is living in a cottage in the cemetery where there are ghosts and there's a haunted house in the town. Just all kinds of spookiness that I love from a book like this. I found it to be very cozy. The writing just flowed very naturally. It kept me wanting to read the story. I also really enjoyed the dialogue, which I didn't realize until after I finished this book, and then I picked up another book and I was like, ooh, yeah, there's a big difference here. The dialogue is actually very, very strong compared to this other book that I'm reading, and I don't know, it just made me appreciate Darcy Coates' dialogue a lot more. Now, this is the first book I have ever read by Darcy Coates, so I can't really speak for any of her others, but I have seen many, many reviews for her other books, and a lot of people love them, and a lot of people just don't enjoy them. They say that they're very poorly written or that they're very formulaic. And obviously by reading the synopses of a lot of those books, you can tell that there is definitely a formula there. But I think that's what Darcy Coates does so well, is that her books are like cozy mysteries. They have that kind of feel to them. Of course, cozy mysteries are very formulaic in themselves. They're about a young person who returns to their hometown, and there's obviously a mystery that they need to solve. And books by Darcy Coates tend to be about a young person coming to stay in this creepy old mansion and spooky stuff goes down. So obviously there does seem to be a formula there, but really you just need to understand what the books are. They're meant to be just light, breezy reads. And I would say The Whispering Dead definitely has a lot of those aspects. You have a young girl coming to a small town, there's spooky stuff going on, but there are also a lot of differences, obviously, because she has amnesia and there are people who are after her, so you have quite a few more layers added on top of the basic haunting. So if you have heard about Darcy Coates, but you can't really get past that basic kind of haunting storyline, I would say this one is probably the best bet for you because it does have a little bit more going on. That being said, I love a good traditional haunting story, so I am very, very excited to read some of Darcy's other books. So I'm going to need some help from you Darcy Coates experts out there. So I've gone through all of the books that I own by her, and I have chosen 4 books that interest me the most. So if you have read a lot of Darcy Coates, this is where I'm going to need your help. I'm going to show you what books I have here, and then I'm going to post a poll, and I will link that down below where you can go and vote which one you think I should read. First up, I have The Cairo Hunt, and this is about a tour guide named Remy, who is the tour guide for the famous haunted Carrow House. And it says here that she is asked to host guests for a week-long stay in order to research Carrow's phenomena. She hopes to finally experience some of the sightings that made the house famous. So basically it's about a bunch of paranormal researchers stuck in this house and creepy things go down. Next up is The Haunting of Rookward House. When Guy finds the deed to a house in his mother's attic, it seems like an incredible stroke of luck. Sure, it hasn't been inhabited in years, and vines strangle the age-stained walls, but Guy's convinced he can clean up the building and sell it. But obviously the house is haunted. It's haunted by this woman who apparently harassed the family that once lived there, and her spirit still lingers in the house, and she has this strange fixation on Guy where she is kind of jealous of him and doesn't want to let him go. Next is The House Next Door, which is one that I've heard a lot about. It's about this girl who lives next door to this haunted house that has lain dormant for many years, But now a new person has moved into the house, and the house is starting to wake up, and she quickly becomes involved. And this is the one that I hear the most about. This is like classic Darcy Coates. This is The Haunting of Ashburn House. This is one of Darcy's earliest books, and it sounds like your basic haunting. A young girl comes to live in this house, and the house is obviously haunted. But I hear people talk about this one all the time. This is the one people say has the strongest creepy cozy feels. So those are the 4 books. Again, I'm gonna put a poll up so you guys can go and vote which one you think I should read. Of course, I want to read all of her books, but it's hard to choose when you have this many. Anyway, thank you all so much for watching my review of The Whispering Dead by Darcy Coates, and I am very much looking forward to the second book in this series. Another thing that I would like to say is that this book doesn't really wrap up the storyline. You definitely have to wait for part 2. There are still many unanswered questions, so if that annoys you, I would wait until book 2 comes out. Otherwise, I would say go for it. I think it really adds to the mystery overall. Thank you so much to Poison Pen Press for sending me an ARC along for review. Again, this book comes out on May 4th, so I'll post links down below where you can pre-order your copy. Thanks again so much for watching, and I will catch you in the next episode of Library Macabre. Later, creeps.